Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2022 PGA Tour Preview. We're going to look at the majors. We're going to talk about the players and even a little bit about how we did with our bets during 2021. To go this all through, this is one of people's favorite shows of the year as we get everything ready for the next season. Jeff and I will be back with the betting show, starting with the Tournament of Champions that Monday. The DraftKings show will come out every Tuesday, as it will for the entirety of the PGA season. Plus, once football is over, then we're going to be having the live chats and preview shows on Sundays. Once again, golf season is ramping up, and no better way to get involved in golf season for 2022 than play in our giant one-and-done tournament. The race for the Mayo Cup, $500,000 of guaranteed money is in the prize pool. If you're unfamiliar with one-and-done, it means you take one golfer per week, you get their earnings. Once you use them one, you can never use them again. FantasyGolfChampionships.com. You can find everything down in the description of this video or podcast, but FantasyGolfChampionships.com is where you can find that. Now, I do have some free entries for you good people out there. If you rate and review the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, say something nice, leave your Twitter handle or email address, you're in the draw for one of a few free $125 entries. It's a 5 max, so we'll be giving those out on the Tournament of Champions show. So do that as soon as you can to get yourself into the draw. If you missed our golf draft with myself and 10 of my closest friends in the fantasy golf community, shame on you. You can subscribe to Mayo Media Network and go check out part 1 and 2 of those as we go through, and you can see how people do in a season-long snake draft drafting golfers. It was a lot of fun. Geoff Fienberg was on that show with me, and of course, Geoff Fienberg is going to be on this show with me. We finally shed Tim. Now the golf season is back.
What do you mean we shed Tim? Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. Some people like Tim sees himself as some self-proclaimed major championship expert. So sometimes he likes to join us on these season preview shows, I feel.
We usually have, he usually has like the knowledge base and history. Like when we talk about, I don't know,
St. Andrews.
Yeah,
he would just.
Yeah, but St. Andrews sticks out in all of our minds. Like when we talk about like Southern Hills, he'll have like vividly remembered the 2007 PGA Championship somehow.
Yeah, no, he does consider himself like a connoisseur of major championships. And he does have that really weird, like creepy memory where he'll like remember like a week 7 game from 2009 that involved the Raiders and Washington or something.
Well, it's all because he has no concept of time, because he'll tell me like that thing that just came out. Like everyone knows that movie. It came out like 2 years ago. It's like, Tim, it came out 19 years ago. And he's like, oh, really? I'm like, so maybe he just lives in his own time. I mean, time is a construct. So you don't necessarily have to live at the same rate as others, but it's just you and I for this, like it will be during golf season. You excited to lose all our money in the one and done again?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a donation. I really hate my team by the end of middle of March, and sometimes I stop picking. So I'm true donation. Like I am donation to the truest form in one and done.
I'll release a one and done strategy show again this year, and I have to like make a note and stick it to my computer. Like, please follow this strategy outside of 2 weeks to kick off the year, because when I do that, I do well, and then I completely get away from my strategy.
Pat, we'll literally be getting messages in June like, oh, thanks for that advice. Like I'm doing so good in my one and done. Like, oh my God. Yeah. Like people listen to what we said, but we didn't, therefore we suck. So yeah, I don't know. Forgotten elite. Just don't worry about wasting players. There's so many good players. Players will always develop. When you would have been at the Tour Championship last year, like, I don't know, you would have known how much you would have liked to still have Sam Burns or there's just 100 examples, but guys just show themselves. Like, don't worry about it. Just fire away.
Yeah, get your money. It's always better to have the money than have to chase the money towards the end, as I found out, because I find myself in a chasing position every single year. So go get your entry for that now, FantasyGolfChampionships.com. Solely, I say that because it fills up really quickly, and it starts at the Sony Open, not the Tournament of Champions. So we'll have a full week press during Tournament of Champions week to figure that out. You, sir, had a very good 2021 in terms of golf betting. I did not. I went back and looked at it. I hit 5 outright winners, which is not great. I should be hitting more than that. That's the lowest I've hit in the 6 or 7 years that we've done this show. I had 9 guys come in second place, though. That's just like you're flipping coins at that point. And I've had years where I had no one come in second and all my guys, like I won every coin flip and won a lot of money. But you can see how starkly things can switch on you when you're in the outright market and you just keep coming up in the shithole every single week. It sucks. But well, hopefully those breaks go my way this time around.
Yeah, I guess I should have been more prepared and counted, but I was quite pleased. I felt like I did quite well last year, and most of my stuff is all documented over at Odds Checker. Just trying to remember my favorite win, though, Pat, had to have been the Fino at the Northern Trust. Fino at the Northern Trust and Vic by a field goal very late.
Yeah,
those would have been my favorites.
Those are your two. So I actually got myself into a decent situation. I hedged out of Finau at the Northern Trust because it was the only time I bet Tony all year, and he won, so I feel good about that. But I hedged out on, it was Cameron Smith, I believe, when they went to the playoff, so I got half the payout as everyone else. Actually, slightly more, because Cameron Smith was plus money in that playoff as a slight underdog. So I cashed out in that situation. However, I was big on Bryson the next week and hedged out in the playoff against Cantlay, so it all worked out to be one win for me.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'll say this. People are watching this show right now, probably spend the year with us, and we're like about to get into it. It is a swamp. Sometimes it is impossible to see the forest through the trees, and making rules for yourself and staying disciplined. I sometimes wish I had the discipline that other people have, that I like to bet with, but it is so important, Pat. Like just the simple rule, and it backfired because I didn't follow it. Morikawa over 30-1. He cashed a bunch of those, and I got off that rule the week before he had that great WGC win. And you could debate the whole Open Championship because I don't know, was it the Kyle Porter tweet that changed the world? Like he doesn't like how his irons are contacting turf in his second ever links golf start. I guess just chalk it up to the guy being a phenom. But that would have been a rule that would have paid off so well last year that we spoke about. We didn't stick to. My most important rule, though, for golf betting, friends, I mean it. It's mistakes. Listen, we all learn the hard way. Thankfully, these mistakes are in the past. But my biggest rule would be take an L. Golf betting is hard. There's no reason to chase it all week. You got to we're going to be back here the next week talking about the next tournament, putting money into that one. So it's okay to get your card literally blown off on a Thursday. It's going to happen. The mistake you can make is chasing chalk on a weekend because golf is stupid.
Well, even looking back at the percentages last year of 54-hole leaders, I believe Justin Ray tweeted this out, that historically, or at least over the past 10 or 20 years, 54-hole leaders convert at like a 49% clip or something like that. And in 2021, they converted at a 21% clip. Like if you had and I had so many guys leading after 3 rounds, and of course it was the year that only 1 in 5 actually hold on.
Yeah.
I will say, although I ended up winning money at the Open Championship because Mac Hughes came inside the top 8, which was a nice each way for me, and the each way betting kind of saved my ass from losing too much last year. I would have been up for the year. I had so much money on Spieth to win the Open Championship, and he was damn close.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Yeah, that was a bet I didn't make, so I wasn't cheering for Brooks at the what was the major? I didn't bet Brooks where he was 50-1 at the major. That bet I would have hated myself had he won. The Brooks one where he was 50-1 and the one that Phil won. Crazy. Looking back on it. On that note, Pat, I had a nice year, really nice year. Majors, looking back at that, my worst major year ever. I got blown off at the majors. For whatever reason, Hideki didn't float my boat. I was all obsessed how he wasn't tasting smoke. Remember? Like, he hasn't even contended. Like, how's he going to go win a major? Played great. U.S. Open, kind of knew it was coming, but That was fun. Had a Bryson lead on the back nine. That was a fun afternoon.
I think we both had Bryson and Brooks at Torrey Pines, and I felt really good on Sunday. I was like, one of these two guys is going to win. And then Rahm, when we think about like the best shots of the year and stuff like that, Rahm's 2 putts, especially his putt on 17 at the US Open, was fucking incredible. Like, that was just stones.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Magic. So I wasn't hitting the chalk. And then, Phil, like, not in a million years. I still think we're living in some Truman Show simulation that happened on a golf course of that length. And Morikawa, I was too deep into the trees to see it. Like, my buddy hit such a massive bet on Morikawa, but as I almost said, it's like, if you listen to any golf content this week, you probably don't make that bet. But you just looked at the odds, said, oh, that guy wins. Like, you didn't read the Twitter to see that nonsense. What a performance.
One of the rules that we should stick to this year, and I think you got both of them and I didn't, and I think I openly talked about it on the show, how I should be betting this, but I'm not going to do it, was Justin Thomas at the Players and Rory at Quail Hollow once they both broke through 20 at those events. That was just stupid on my part not to bet them.
Once they both, I hit Justin Thomas live at the Players.
Yeah,
that was a big comeback, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, because we did the Cut Sweat show, and we looked at the 3 players who were in the best position to kind of make a charge, and it was Reed, Thomas, and Spieth, because their numbers really added up to, oh wow, they're just not putting. If they start making some putts, all of a sudden they're completely back in on this. So after 36, Justin Thomas was 40-1 to come back and win, and he was like 8 off the pace or something stupid like that. But even before the event, he dropped down to like 22, 23-1, same as Rory at Quail Hollow, and just I for whatever reason I wasn't there.
Yeah, and honestly, it's so many events. In some ways, it all just can sometimes feel like one giant blur when trying to recap it, Pat. But I am so excited for what is coming. Like, I think the game is in such a great place, and the draft that we did a couple weeks ago, or I'm not sure when this is gonna air. I think the draft's already aired. Yes. And how do I put this? Is Victor Hovland going to be the most overvalued golfer on the planet this year? And I love him as much as anybody, but it's something's happening there, right?
Everyone is all in on how good Hovland is right now. And listen, it's a bit of a recency bias because he finishes 2021 with 2 wins. He wins Mayakoba at a resort course in Mexico against what was a pretty strong field. I'll give him that. Like, it was a much stronger field at Mayakoba than we're used to. And then he went and beat 19 other dudes in a glorified exhibition game where he had to chip in for eagle out of a bunker to really run away with it at the end. But the fact that he's actually closing these, I do think it means something, and he's building up that confidence. But eventually we're going to need to see like a real win from Vic, I think, before everyone, like, people are penciling him in to win a major this year, which I don't necessarily disagree with. He's going to be one of the 10 players in the world who you are going to favor to win a major, but
he's the 7th ranked player in the world.
Yeah, like, he should be one of the guys who is a betting favorite with a great shot to win a major. But, like, what major have we gotten to where we're talking about Victor Hovland on Sunday? It's like, oh man, Vic can really make a run here and win this. Has that happened to date yet?
Well, remember how well he played at the Masters last year, despite some insane like triple or something on the first?
Yeah, but he played well. Like, he finished.
And then
what did he finish? He finished
like
15th
DQ'd
or
from
something.
one of them, or he withdrew because got something in his
sand
eye.
in his eye at the PGA Championship.
And then he won in Germany like the next week.
Sure, but who's he beating in Germany? That was the one where like even Paul Casey was like, "I'm not playing."
Okay, I get it. I get it. I would probably say I think Xander would win a major this year before Victor would, but I wouldn't be I think both of them can. So yeah, I guess like there's still guys who haven't won majors I'd put ahead of him. Maybe just one guy, to be perfectly honest, though.
Sure, but like when we're capping this, like his major performance is good, but it's not great. Like he had a good Masters despite making like a triple on the very first hole, and he made a ton of birdies, but he made a ton of bogeys at the same time. Like, he came 21st at the Masters. It's good. It's not great. He was 12th at the Open Championship, but really had no chance of winning. Like, I'm talking about, and he withdrew from the U.S. Open. He was 30th at the PGA Championship. I'm just trying to, like, go backwards in my mind. Despite these, like, good finishes at majors, it feels like he hasn't ever contended at a major. This was the Patrick Reed thing for a really long time until he really did compete at that PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, and then I think he won the Masters the next year.
Okay, fair, but I almost think it's an unfair comparison because the hype that he has into this year is pretty, like, the only player who's had this sort of hype who without a major probably would have been Ricky in like 2016 or something, right?
Yeah,
but he played well in the majors.
But here's the thing: why is Vic any different than Finau, despite the fact that Finau is like 3 times the price?
I don't disagree with that at all, And I love all these guys. And old me, Pat, starting days of content me, teenage me would have had to pick good guys and bad guys, and had to love some, and just decide to hate others. It's not the point where, like, all these young guys or all these guys, I love them all. I want to see them all play well. The weeks I bet on them, I want to see them play even better, obviously. But here's the thing with Vic, and it started last year, the comment of it on this show, but I didn't put it into action till later in the season. And that's the Vic by the field goal. And I'm going to go after those because I'm not going to be betting Vic at 15-1. I will not do it. And if Vic is going to win as much as the Vic ceiling truthers say he's going to win this year, then I guarantee you I'm going to catch at least 1 to 2 field goal victories. So I'm excited to still implement those. But at the current prices, I don't know if I'm going to be able to be betting Vic a ton, which is unfortunate. And I guess that's part of, like, rules. Like, there's players you got to love and you like a lot, but you maybe have to have the discipline to be like, they're going to maybe have to win that really big event without me, you know?
I think the perfect example is John Rahm at the U.S. Open. Like, we all agreed that he was the best bet, but no one was going to bet him at 8-1 to win a major. I wasn't going to be there for it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to listen, favorites are going to win sometimes. And when you don't bet favorites in golf, which I think is the better strategy, to be perfectly honest with you, based on the bigger numbers that you can get down the line, then it's just not going to work out that way. Especially in, like, the one thing that I've come to concede, because, like, Heritage really wrecked me this year, because I had a big piece on Morikawa to win at the RBC Heritage, and Stuart Sink ended up winning. But, like, they were essentially tied going into the final round. It was like the worst round I've ever seen Morikawa play. I couldn't believe it. And Sink just played steady the entire time, and Morikawa shot himself out of it. And then Sink didn't have to beat anyone else, because those two were like clear by the field by so much that at these lesser events, yeah, occasionally a favorite is going to win. But there's so much variance in those sort of weaker fields that are kind of birdie fests that I think we should just... Where did you find, like, most of the action came in this year? The 20 to 45 range kind of thing?
No, I feel like for a bit this year, that range was disappearing. And we were either getting, like, I feel like there was a run where it was either going to the top, or we were getting a run of a lot of long shots. Like, long shots were hitting a lot last year. From that Sink victory to KH Lee, Cameron Davis, and those were just the ones that I had money on. There had to be a handful that I wasn't a part of. Yeah. I mean, obviously Phil at the major, but they were happening all over the place, it felt like, last year.
Yeah, it happened pretty early too, because let's see here. Max Homa won at Riviera. Matt Jones won the Honda. Even Sam Burns at Valspar. I mean, he wasn't like a long shot, but he was still in like the 35-1 range. Billy Horschel won the match play. I think he was like 75-1 or something crazy like that. Hideki at the Masters. Sink wins again. So yeah, KH Lee is another one. And then it went pretty chalky. I guess Lucas Glover at the John Deere Classic. I think he was like 50 or 75-1, somewhere in that range. And then I guess EVR at the Barracuda was kind of the same thing as well. But once we got to like the midpoint of the year, it went on kind of a run. Like, we hit Kokrak at the Charles Schwab, who his number was just wrong that week, where he was playing so well and he should have been considered one of the favorites because you had Cam Davis in Detroit, like you mentioned, but then it went like Cantlay, Rory, Rahm, Harris English at the Travelers, who was one of the favorites. Then you had like Morikawa. Champ was a big long shot at 3M. Kisner was, mid-priced at Wyndham. Finau, Cantlay. And even if you would bet on Rahm or Kevin Na, they were like decent in the betting market without strokes at the Tour Championship. So at the beginning of the year, it seemed like there was more value on these longer shot guys where they kind of dissipated, which makes sense because now you're getting into majors, WGCs, and playoff events when all the good guys show up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I would say in the biggest events, though, we didn't get a ton of the chalk outside of the Rahm US Open win. Like even like the Morikawa WGC, he was 35, 40 to 1.
40 to 1. 40 to 1. That was great.
You mentioned Billy at the GC, 70 to 1. Between Morikawa's major, Hideki's major, Phil's major. Those are all 40. Hideki, I think, was 50. Phil is what it is. I keep bringing that up. So in the biggest events, I don't think the chalk was hitting at all.
No, I mean if that's not the chalk, that's sort of like the next tier down. Those are still what I would call elite players, though. Not Horschel.
Yeah, no,
so
I
much.
like that. Listen,
Horschel's like a step down from those guys, but whether it's Hideki or Morikawa, I mean, those guys are excellent players.
And I would say that showed that Hideki Morikawa win. That shows Pat that the major sweet spot is that like 30 to 50 to 1 range, well, especially for those first time winners.
Well,
and that's why like you look at just to jump into things, but like just look at how well Berger finished in every big event last year, the last couple years, how he finishes in the top events. And he's like in that ultimate sweet spot for that first time major winner price point for all through 2022, I think.
Yeah, let's see. 8th at the Open Championship, 7th at the US Open, 75th at the PGA Championship. That was a really bad weekend. He was kind of in it after 2 rounds. 9th at the Players, and he missed the cut at the Masters. He's bad at the Masters, as we found out.
Yeah, he's never made, I don't think he's ever shot under 70 at the Masters, which is something I've learned the hard way, apparently.
I don't think that's true, because he came 10th in his debut at the Masters.
So then maybe that's Hatton, another guy in that range.
No, you know what? That you might be right about the 10th at the Masters was the year that Willett won, and that was the year it was really hard.
Yeah, I just saw. I don't know. I saw the something on that. So that continues to be the sweet spot. And Jon Rahm, though, like we always spoke about it, right, Pat? Like Jon Rahm, we consider as good as like when we just knew Dustin Johnson would win a major. And honestly, when we just knew Jason Day would win a major. Those are the only first-time major winners that were able to do it under 15 to 1 in our sort of recent in the time we've been doing this. It's very hard, and I guess we'll see what comes of it for the other guys. But also, like when you add Morikawa into a staple under 20 to 1, when Victor just wants to be bet so heavily, when Patrick Cantlay wins the FedEx Cup and a Player of the Year, does that mean any which way we'll get a break on Xander Schauffele, who was second at the Masters last year? Probably not, but I'd love to.
Yeah, looking at Berger from the year he came 10th in his debut, the year that made our careers when Danny Willett ended up winning by 3 strokes. Berger went 73, 71, 74, 71. He finished 1 over par and came in 10th. So yeah, I think you're right. I don't think he's ever broke 70.
Yeah, so he's a guy that sort of sits right in that, and that's why I think he's a very popular bet major week, because at least I believe he's a player capable of winning the big events. And I'll say this as we do this stuff, talking about majors, people will send me text tweets all the time. Like, do you like this guy? Like, I don't care if the number is going to be shorter by the time the major comes. If I don't believe the player can win, like I still have to believe the player can win for me to bet a guy. Like, I don't care if he's 100 now and he's going to be 60 week of, if I don't think he's going to win. Even if I agree with you, he's going to be 60 of the week. Now, closing line value in golf, that's a whole like different thing as opposed to like having it in football. But Guys, I gotta believe he can win if I'm gonna make a bet on you to win a major championship.
Yeah, it's not like you're, grabbing the extra half point in a football game, which, they can still lose but cover that spread because of the half point. I agree with you. I mean, I always like to bet early so I can try to get the best numbers on the guys that I like the best. But it's not going to preclude me from saying I want to bet this guy because I'm looking at it like just looking at the Masters odds right now. I don't know if there's anyone up there, but I mean, there could be. Like Jason Kokrak is 100-1 right now. If Jason Kokrak wins Pebble Beach this year, he's going to be like 40-1 to win the Masters. He's not going to win the Masters, so I'm not betting him.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And clearly, it's so hard. I can't bet any of this chalk to win the Masters. Right now, I assume I'm going to get essentially the same number by the time we get there, other than the one or two players that, are in great form the week of. It's all about, I guess, trying to dissect who do you think can win, who's got that big number right now. I will say I'll pat myself on the back, Pat, in sort of this sort of format. I've picked the two biggest future major winners with the Willett and the Woodland picks over 100-1. People can come back at me with the Phil pick, but I make this counter argument with the Phil pick.
No one picked it.
No, but I would argue Christmas time last year, Phil's odds to win the PGA were shorter than the week of the event, if that makes any sense.
Well, this is the problem that we've gotten into now, and the biggest difference from when we started doing this show to where golf betting has evolved to in 2022 is that they know that people are looking for the good odds early. We sniffed them out. Like over the first 5 years of the show, we could sniff out some pretty good odds on players who would end up going off at 50-1 or 45-1 and grab them at 150 or 125. I don't really feel like that exists to this point. I think like just looking at the odds at the Masters right now, no one is a good value. There's not one player here unless it's like, oh, Victor is currently at DraftKings Sportsbook 22-1 to win the Masters. What's the best case scenario here? He drops to 28 at some point, or he moves up to 16? Like, it's just like before he would have been like 40, or like they would actually hang numbers. Now it's the opposite. They're just giving you bad numbers on people. You mentioned that like 30 to 50 range. There's so many guys in that range. And by the time like the week of gets along, there's going to be like 6 guys in this range. And a lot of these guys who are 40 or 35 or 45 are going to be 55, 60, 65, 70 because no one's going to bet on them. We got like Berger, Hideki, Finau, Reed, Webb, Zalatoris, Scheffler, Neiman, Hatton, Fleetwood, Connors, Casey, Ricky Fowler, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Cameron Smith, Louis Oosthuizen, Sungjae, and Abraham Answer. All those guys are from 30 to 50 on the betting board right now. That is just not going to be the case the week of the Masters.
And guess what? You want to know the reality of the situation is? One of those like 12 best players in the world is going to win the Masters. And I just haven't decided which one it's going to be. And there's no point in betting any of them. Like people message me like, Cantley, 22-1. You should bet that. What's it going to turn to? What's he got to do to get like, do you know what I mean? Like you almost said it. So it becomes 18. I don't know. I'm not making any of these bets right now. The most frustrating part though, about the future board, Pat, and we know this, we've talked about it often. If a player plays well, they'll crush his number. But there's no like give back on a guy struggling. A good player struggling, it's not like they bump him from 30 to 60 because they're like, no, he's a good player. This tournament isn't for 6 months. He'll figure it out. We're not giving them X on that player right now either. So it's a one-way street with the future board. You only lose points when players perform well, but you're never getting points. The only way you're getting points is if their SUV rolls off a road.
And even then, it's going to be a temperamental thing where it comes down. Where is Tiger now? Tiger is... Do they even have Tiger?
50, 60?
They don't actually. DraftKings Sportsbook does not have a Tiger Woods bet on the board for the Masters.
Well, I think we're being rope-a-doped by the man, so I don't blame them.
He was as low as 200-1 in places, but the moment that he played the team tournament with his son, his odds got crushed back down to like 50-1 in places. So,
well, listen, we can do this right now. I have no doubts. Like, you have to sell low, and that's what he did at his press conference before the Hero. He sold low. just didn't want to get anyone's hopes up. You sell low and you over deliver. That's the number one lesson in life. I do that in parenting. I don't even do a lot. People think when I do like the little things, I'm doing something great. It's because their expectations were so low of me. Boom, win this guy. Okay. Now, Tiger, totally different creature. He's got to make himself a mental makeup in a way where he has to, just tell us to expect nothing. Then what does he do? He's grinding every day on the range. He's in Sunday regalia at the Hero for a range session. Red shirt, black pants. He's paid to do it. He probably has to go to Starbucks on Sunday in a red shirt. That's cool. But what I know, Pat, is I have no fears. We're going to be overflowing with Tiger joy before it's like over. And what I mean by that is, I saw him swinging full at the PNC, which means like there's just going to be a continual ramp up here. Swinging full swing speed. That's a great sign. There's courses I know he can go to that can work for him. Maybe it won't even be this year. I have other theories. I never thought Tiger would play the Champions Tour. Now I'm certain he's going to play the Champions Tour, even on some semi bases like we saw Phil. And it's a great tune-up to get your game in shape, maybe for the big events that you want to play on the PGA Tour. But I have this other dream, Pat, this content dream where Tiger, he's just so competitive. We haven't even gotten the years where Charlie's on the bag yet, folks. We haven't even gotten to those years yet. We're going to get so much of this guy and we're going to love it. And it's going to get to the point where Champions Tour TV dollars or rights fees could be worth almost as the big boys because he's going to play. He's going to play. And if he wants to really do it, Pat, he should like own the tour. The PGA Tour should give him like a 70 like a true ownership
that
stake.
would be I mean, he's not stupid. And I think that he got a cut of the PGA money in like the late 90s to be like, hey, why don't I
in the same way Arnold Palmer took the Champions Tour and made it something, Tiger's going to just redo this whole thing. And then we're of this age where all these guys that we grew up loving, like Bubba Watson, are going to end up there. Like, I'm just saying, like, for guys our age, it's going to be so good. And he's going to own the rights of the PGA Champions Tour. I mean it. Like, that's where it's going. That's what I think's going to happen. I love it.
Yeah, if he doesn't negotiate himself a part of the Champions Tour, I don't think that he'll play on it.
But I think he will, and I think they'll give it to him.
I think that they'll give it to him, and he will play. I agree with you. But if I was him, I would not do it unless they gave me that.
And as for the PGA Tour, we've spoken about this a bunch. Davis Love wanted Sedgefield at 53. I have no doubts Tiger can make a compact schedule that tunes him up for big events, but at the same time, he chases a win by playing courses where he's not penalized by the driver. And I don't mean, people make the jokes, Pat, that he should practice like year round at Mayakoba and Puerto Rico and play that swing of events. But I don't know. He can do whatever he wants. But I'm telling you, the cup of Tiger, we're going to be so satisfied. I mean it. I mean it. I feel it. I know it.
Especially if he ends up playing the Masters. We have no idea how he's going to look this year, but I think that he'll end up playing the Masters and he'll probably perform well. It's the Masters. It's Tiger. He just always, it's like how Fred Couples still plays well at the Masters. Bernhard Langer still plays well at the Masters, that he's going to have that. If he does play well at the Masters, we probably don't see him for a while. I actually, and you can't bet this now, but the week of, remind me, the best bet that you can make is bet Tiger Woods to miss the cut at the U.S. Open. The U.S. Open is not going to be kind to Tiger as the years go forward. They're not kind to him now.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I totally I can't argue with that.
Like we're gonna have a situation where, I mean, it's funny because Spieth is almost kind of in the same circumstance now. Like Spieth's gonna be competitive at Augusta and the Open Championship, and I kind of like that. Those are his two best chances of winning more majors.
What did we do on the show last year? We bet Tiger to win Royal St. George.
Yeah, he would have been great there.
Would have been great. It'll be St. Andrews, you know, if he's healthy. I'm not saying this year. I don't know what's got to happen this year. And I'm not even talking about in terms of wins. Although if I had to bet, he will get one more win.
In his career or this year?
No, maybe not this year. I don't know what this year holds.
My worry is that he's going to play like a more condensed version of the Adam Scott schedule. That he's not going to give himself, like you said, like the Mayakoba, like those type of courses. He was never going to play those anyway. But like Wyndham and Heritage. Like, those are courses where he could truly compete. And those are courses that I think would align a lot with what his skill set is now and where he is still excellent.
Valspar, Honda too, right? We got to separate Florida events so he doesn't need to play back to back.
Sure, but I just don't think he shows up to any of these ones anymore.
Maybe.
Like,
Maybe you that's totally fair, but you do think he shows up to RBC and Sedgefield, right?
No. I don't think he shows up to those events. I think he should show up to those events. I don't think that he will.
Yeah. I guess we'll find out. And he's acknowledged in that press conference that he's going to play so little when he plays again that he's going to need to find ways to practice, like you said, those competitive putts, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
like
you have to feel some way to
tournament feels.
Simulate
like
the
he's
pressure.
going to have to find ways to create tournament feels when he's just showing up every now and then. He'll do it.
Do you want to get into Masters right now or talk about some potential breakout players for this year? Guys who you think, let's talk about that. Guys whose stock is going to go up in 2021, because I feel like the cat is out of the bag on like the breakout players for this year going into it, because these players have already broken out mainly during the swing season. Like, people are aware of Taylor Gooch. People are aware of Sam Burns. Like, these guys are really good. And you can't really call them sleepers anymore. Same as Vic. You can't really call like Vic's going to be a breakthrough. Yeah, well, every single person is saying that. I don't think that's sneaking up on anyone. His odds dictate that he's not. I am looking down the list. I think this is a big rebound year for Gary Woodland now that he is healthy. I think that he probably has so many years left of being like top level elite guy before the dip happens when he gets too old. And I think that if he's back from this torn labrum in his hip, he looks completely healthy again. Last year was a complete write-off. He's kind of out of everyone's mindset right now. He won the US Open, obviously, but he was having a great year. And maybe he peaked, and that was going to be it for him anyway, kind of like we saw with Webb Simpson, where he had his run as sort of like an elite player. Now he has taken the step back. Will the same thing happen to Harris English? Now, who knows at this point? But we see some of these American players, they hit their peak a little bit later, then they come back down and level off. Even Tyrrell Hatton could be the same way too, for a European reference on that one. But I think that Woodland still got stuff in the juice, and I think he's going to be undervalued coming out of the gate before people catch on that he's still good.
Yeah, listen, I am a forever Gary sort of guy here, so I'm thrilled to hear you say that. I can't wait for the Monday mornings where you're talking up Gary and you talk me into betting him, and it's easy to twist my arm on him. I guess the one concern could be like maybe he just already got everything out of himself that he could have. But you're not even talking about performing in a major. You're literally saying, no, we're going to catch this guy at 80 to 1, 70 to 1 at like a really bad field, maybe 100 to 1. Like, so I get, like, you're not talking about a major. You're talking about like, no, this guy's going to cash a ticket for us this year. And I don't care if it's the goddamn Palmetto.
Speaking of the Palmetto, I think that Garrick Higo is going to win a Masters. I don't think it's going to be this year in his debut, but I think that he has the perfect game for Augusta. His short game is immaculate. He is proven to be a pretty clutch putter inside 10 feet, and the guy is fucking incredible off the tee. And being a lefty, I think, really only helps your case. I was looking, let's talk Masters, like Masters futures.
Yeah, let's do it, because a lot of the conversations, breakouts, are my player that I think it all leads to maybe I like them for the Masters anyway. So let's do it.
I don't see anyone on the board worth betting right now, outside of a guy that I bet to win the PGA Championship last year and actually cashed us a nice top 20 ticket at the Masters in his debut this time, got himself back into the Masters this time around. But at DraftKings Sportsbook right now, my guy Bobby Mack is 130 to 1. I mean, a power lefty. We've seen crazier things happen. It's going to be his second Masters. I like that he has the experience under his belt. He was 12th a year ago. I don't think he's the greatest player, but I think that Augusta sets up well for him.
Okay, I totally agree with that, and seeing some huge numbers. And there are guys that I'm going to tout who are probably a bit shorter than him on the odds board, but find me 100 to 1 Masters winner, Pat, and I'll build off your Higo takes and really buy into Higo. I buy into Higo, but Bezuidenhout checks a lot of those boxes also, as a really sneaky player. And the President's Cup South African invasion is probably going to be on, I think. Not saying they're going to perform well at the Cup, but it feels like that roster is going to be invaded by South Africa.
I worry about Bezuidenhout at Augusta simply because he is like one of the shittiest drivers on the PGA Tour. Like, he is awful off the tee. Now, can he hit enough fairways? He has to be a part of like Team Magic Beans along with Mackenzie Hughes and Jordan Spieth. But we know his peak Spieth is like good at everything. And then he has the Magic Beans, which is kind of what makes him unstoppable when he's going well. Like, he really fixed his driver over the past 18 months. He's not Rory off the tee, but he's not the world's worst driver anymore, which is really all he needs to be. His irons are still really good. And Bezuidenhout can get hot and cold with the irons. And at 100 to 1, can he make enough putts over the course of 4 days? Probably. But can he drive it well enough for 4 days to not take himself out of contention?
Yep.
Would be
Sorry.
He needs I think the path to Bezuidenhout winning the Masters is the Willett path to winning the Masters. It needs to be one of those really hard Masters years where his short game means more, his putting means more, and the driving means less.
And I'll just put it out there. It's not like a bet I'm making, but I'm playing the game of 100 to 1.
Oh, sure. But I want to throw some cold water back at you, too. We're not here to be an agreement show.
Although there's a bet that I could be prepared to make right now and ask you to make it for me when staring at Masters odds, Pat. And it's high enough on the board. I'm seeing Sung Jae Im at 80 to 1 to win the Masters. The book that sometimes I have you make bets for me on because they kicked me off years ago.
I don't see him at 80 to 1 unless I'm just not seeing him.
Oh, shit.
No, he's 45 to 1 at that book.
That's my US Open page. I'm embarrassed. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
He's 50. Okay. Yeah. I got confused because the other guys I like were the exact same odds. For that tournament. So I don't know. There's no one in that deep range. In the middle range, I am one of those people, Pat, that I'm going to lose a lot of money on Corey Connors this year.
Yeah, but you're not going to bet Corey Connors at the Masters at 50 to 1. Or sorry, 66 to 1 right now. Like that's too short for when.
No, because I think what he has to do before the Masters for it to be under 60 to 1 would probably be to win. And I think the week of, a lot of these guys get the uptick, but he's a player that I think the absolute world of. I think he's going to win something real big in the next couple of years.
I could see it. He just needs he has to improve putting at some point, right? I mean, I've said this with the losers that I bet for the past 5 years, and they never do. But Webb went from being the worst putter on tour to the best putter on tour. He doesn't even need to do that. He just needs to be not the worst putter on tour, and all of a sudden we're in business.
The thing about Connors, though, his whole game continues to improve. Like, his putting is improved. It got better last year, but his whole game continues to improve.
Well, looking at him, I have the stats pulled up on fantasynational.com. If you are into gambling or you are into daily fantasy or just researching golf, you need to be a member at fantasynational.com. Use fantasynational.com/Mayo to get yourself 20% off. And we have just added in shot shapes in the individual player profiles new for 2022. You can see how often a player moves the ball right to left to right, hits it directly straight, and the accuracy that they have with those shots. So if you want to see if someone's a draw player, a fade player, you can find that out pretty easily now on fantasynational.com. So I highly recommend that you check that out. Looking at Corey Connors, I have the entire PGA Tour, like top 250 players from last year, sorted by their last 50 rounds. Corey Connors, of all players, 213th around the green in strokes gained, 160th in putting. He is 10th in ball striking. That is 5th off the tee, 27th in approach. Even though he is 213th around the green, he is still 24th in strokes gained tee to green. I see it. He's an elite ball striker. These are the types of players that we love to target because they present the highest variance of any sort of player. This is why we always kept catching good numbers on Morikawa, even up to the Open Championship, is because he too is a really shitty putter 4 out of 5 weeks. Except on the 5th week, he's one of the best putters in the field. Connors needs to have that happen for him in order to be like a legit contender in these spots.
Yeah, I guess that's the question, right? Does he have that ability to spike that category? Not just have a good week in that category, but what we do here, what we're going to do weekly is discuss outright betting. So do the hard spikes exist? What's funny is you brought up, well, not funny, you brought up Woodland as your player to maybe to have a resurgence. My player in that regard, probably a bit more highly ceiling player, considering he was former number 1 in the world. But another player that I am going to lose a lot on this year, Pat, is Adam Scott.
Why
You
though?
sort of made the comment with Woodland that you believe there's one more go here for a rededication. I am certain that's currently happening with Scott. There is one more go. These young guys, they come out of the tunnel ready. They are attacking these tournaments, these leaderboards, these world rankings. It's almost hard to comprehend. But Adam Scott, like a one more full dedication to the craft. We're going to catch something big. I really do feel that. To compare it to like the Phil thing, I don't think we see Scott as like low as Phil was last year. So I don't think anything can compare to that. But at the same time, in trying to pick a guy who's going to find a moment or two of total rejuvenation, it's Adam Scott for me.
If I took Sergio against Scott, who do you think has the better year? Because I'm seeing those two at very similar prices across everything.
I like them both. And they have sort of the same sort of struggles. And in some ways, it's sad. Like Corey Connors, just a young Adam Scott, right? The other guy just talked up.
I would say he's sort of like a young Sergio at this point, except Sergio has immaculate touch around the greens.
Yeah, I'm very bullish on both Sergio and Scott, but I would probably lean Scott. But I think Sergio's going to play more, and Sergio plays in some lower tier events sometimes. So Sergio might be more likely to get like a win.
Well,
but like a WGC or a major, I would take Scott.
I don't know. Like I'm looking at it right now. Like Scott putted really well last year. Like really, really well. He was 23rd of all.
Where did he miss the 3-footer in the fall to win?
Wyndham.
Oh, yeah.
But by and large, like a lot of his top performances were just based on the back of his putter, which you don't expect from Adam Scott. It always used to be sort of the Corey Connors thing. Like, oh my God, man, make some putts. And all of a sudden, like we're off to the races, and he never could do it. But he gained last year in like 80% of his starts, and like big time too. Like at Farmers, when he was very much in the mix and ended up coming 10th, it's because he putted well that week. Like he was okay. He was a very poor driver of the ball. He was very bad with his irons. His irons did heat up basically starting at the Wyndham, and he started to played well at the CJ Cup and the Shriners, and did really well at Wyndham, and the drivers started to come back, but he started to lose his touch around the green and his putter again. So maybe he just needs to kind of piece it together. I'm kind of with you on that. With Sergio, like he has fallen into Corey Connors' range of being the worst putter on tour. Like he is god awful, but his driving has not gone anywhere. The irons are far more inconsistent than they have been like any point of his past. But the spike weeks that he gets out of his irons, like he's leading the field with his irons when he's on, and the driving doesn't go anywhere. So maybe they are pretty similar, to tell you the truth. Like we could do a Sergio and Scott head-to-head bet this year, of like who gets more wins or who ends up with more money or anything like that.
Against
yeah, but that feels like we might as well just flip coins at this point. They feel like very much the same player now.
Yeah, and I don't want to cheer against Sergio. I get suckered into those numbers because I punch him into the model, and he always, comes up as very bettable because he's usually over 40-1, and you're betting on the spike. And I'm silly enough to trust him in situations like I shouldn't. Very much like, the amount of times I'll bet Paul Casey and hate myself.
I like Carlos Ortiz to break out this year. King Carlos has been my guy for ages.
Yeah,
but his putter went so exceptionally cold after the PGA Championship, which is really off. Like for his career in 140 starts on the PGA Tour, he has a positive putter, marginally. He's a little bit above average on the PGA Tour. In his past 10 starts on the PGA Tour, he is losing an average of 2.4 strokes putting per event. That is outrageous. That is one of the worst on tour. Now, is this just a thing where he has the yips and he can't putt anymore, and that's just going to be plaguing him his entire life? I don't think so, because even from earlier this year, you see spikes of like 7.5 gain, 5.1 gain. The big thing that I'm kind of on with him, though, is that he became utterly consistent ball striking. He drives it well. He hits his irons well. There was a point of last year where he was just living on basically Mackenzie Hughes's game plan of chipping in every single time. Then that flipped and he went through a really rough patch. And then he started putting really poorly, which masked how well he was actually striking the ball. If he can just get back to being a break-even putter and continue on this path of upward trajectory with his ball striking, I think he's going to be a force. And he plays in a lot of these like dinky dunk tournaments too. So whether it's the Sony or American Express or one of these ones, I think we can catch Carlos on a good one.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. I don't have a bad thing to say about Carlos. I was gonna put Aaron Seamus Powers tires, but I'm looking at the stats and I don't see what I thought I knew.
He had his run. He had a run of like 4 events where he was incredible.
Yeah.
It was like, who was the other guy halfway through the year who just went mental with the putter for like 2 months? Hank Lebioda. Remember when he had his run?
Yeah, the run of seconds for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, Power's fine though. Like Power's a good player.
I don't know. But in terms of a breakout player, like I don't know. It seems so weird. Like you can't call Max Homa a breakout player. He won Riviera. He won twice last year, right? Like
I think a lot of people will point to Aaron Wise as the breakout player. He's still 151 to win the Masters. And like Rick has pointed this out, that ever since he has switched to the broomstick putter, he's just been like, his biggest drawback was A, he was inconsistent, but B, like he would lose 9 strokes a tournament on the greens. Now he doesn't. So to fix that part of your game, you start looking a whole lot better when it comes to the standings. But I feel like he's going to be a very popular one. Here's a shorter number. Like Maverick McNeely is very popular to break out this year. It seems like people like him more than Max Homa, which I find truly bizarre considering Homa's won 3 times on the PGA Tour. McNeely has not. And Homa's actually won. He won Quail Hollow. He won Riviera. Like he's won some big time tournaments. But other than that, I actually think all the buzz that we talked about with Hovland, and Xander, like all these guys, even Finau, break out for their first career major, like the upper echelon win. And people will thrust Burns into that conversation now too. I'm still kind of stuck on Zalatoris and Scheffler. I feel like we have not seen the best from them yet.
No, of course not. And I mean, there's so many ways to slice the cat of debating the young guys, but I guess now, you know, even if you want to add players into the group, like there's a clear demarcation point that Morikawa and Hovland are ahead, right? And then it's the next group would probably involve like Burns, Scheffler, Neiman, right? Like, so it's Wolf.
It does.
Listen,
Matthew Wolf is going to win 18 times this year. That's my prediction. I'm going to be there for all of them because I love Matthew Wolf, and he's going to cost me so much money. It's going to be kind of ridiculous. He's a guy who loves coming in second place for me. At least at majors, he's pretty deep when he ends up doing it, so it's not so bad. But just the heartbreak I've experienced with Matthew Wolf when he's been in contention in big tournaments is just like, he's another like good. He's a good spike putter too. Like he has his bad weeks, but he has his really good weeks. I think it's unfair to classify Morikawa and Hovland together because I think that's how they came in. That's how they were known. Vic was always given Vic was the prospect coming in. Fuck, I called him young Rory, and I still believe that. He'll eventually harness his entire game and be like Rory has. He'll have that sort of ceiling. Whether he ever gets there, who knows? But the only reason that Morikawa, besides age, really, and coming in together at the same time, like Morikawa's not on Vic's level. Morikawa's on Rahm's level. He's won two. He's won 2 majors.
I can't debate it. There's nothing to really argue there. You're probably right. It's like Morikawa definitive gap, Hovland definitive gap. Like
yes,
they are almost in their own clear category. To call Morikawa 1A to Hovland's 1B is probably a respect to Colin Morikawa.
But this is where Morikawa comes back in, because we see him right now. He is the 4th favorite at the Masters. He's 14-1. He is one of those guys whose number will change if he doesn't win in like February. If he doesn't win by February, he'll be 22-1 again. That's just what happens with him.
Yeah, I will say this. There are so many guys and there are so many good golfers that something's going to have to give, right? The guys that aren't playing well, their numbers are going to have to get high. It just happens every time. Brooks Koepka still like goes into the 30s when there's like a loss of form, right? So
not at majors though. They will continue to keep his major number between 16 and 22. They just will.
Yeah, I guess if he's healthy, clearly in that regard. Scheffler, listen, like Scheffler, he's going. Who won? Like Finau won at the end of last year, and another guy we like to make fun of who never wins won at the end of last year. And I joked, Scotty Scheffler's like losing his cover because he's going to be the next man up that people want to make fun of.
It was Vic. It was Vic, wasn't it? Because Vic ended up.
Oh yeah, I guess it might have been Vic. I'm trying to remember, but these guys that were the cover for Scheffler just kept going down. And Scheffler, like you look at his major record, his big event record,
it's good.
His ability to cash, right? It's almost like the books price him like they would price Finau of a couple years ago because they have to protect the each way.
But he doesn't get the credit that, like, when you compare Hovland's major record to Scheffler's major record, they're very similar. Like last year at the majors, let's see here, he was 8th at the Open Championship, 7th at the U.S. Open, 8th at the PGA Championship, and 18th at the Masters.
Runner-up at a WGC.
Yep, and runner-up in Houston,
right.
4th at Mayakoba, like 3rd at the Memorial.
Made the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, 5th at Concession, top 10 at in Phoenix. Like, it felt like he had a lot worse year than he did because the expectation for him coming into last year was so high. But now he's kind of becoming forgotten, and that will change if he has a good performance. People will just glom onto his nuts and be like, oh man, Scotty Scheffler definitely going to win the Masters. I'm not saying that, but I think that he will be undervalued. You know who the guy is, though, who's going to win us the most money?
I don't think he's undervalued. Like, we did the draft. I had the 9th pick of 11 guys. I took him in the 2nd round.
Okay, but I think that's because we're talking about it. I think when we look at the betting markets, it's not going to be the case. Like, where's Scheffler? Scheffler is 50-1 to win the Masters. Like, is there that much of a difference, again, between Hovland? But is there that big of a difference between Hovland, Finau, and Scheffler?
Okay, you're right. So we're always like, and we've spoken about this in the weekly show, like buy low on the guy with the bigger odds of like the group, right? Sometimes that's maybe just like the betting strategy to go by. The thing with Scheffler and discussing the majors, that just starts a whole other conversation. But you are far more likely to see Scheffler, like we get to the American Express or we get to Phoenix or something like that. Scheffler is far more likely to be 28-30-1 than 12-1. Like, hell, I will say this about Scheffler, and it was the motto you took with Finau. Now, the issue here is when we're talking about majors and future majors, you'd like to see him win somewhere else because that's a really big ask. Like, he's in that price range of first-time major winners, but those guys have already won tournaments, right? Like the guys that win their first major in that 30 to 50 range are also not looking to win their first ever PGA Tour event. So that's a bit of a caveat with the Scheffler claim. Although, just like we're learning in every other sport, Pat, the rules we put, these self-imposed rules we put on what guys are capable of starting their careers coming out of college, you got to throw that all out the window. I mean, like, look what Willie did at the Masters a couple years ago. Look at Morikawa, 2nd run at the Open Championship. They just come out of the tunnel totally ready to win. But Scheffler, like the theory you had with Finau, which we freaking cashed on at 66, baby. I was in the well so long, okay? For people, that was profit. For me, that was get back. I'd rather bet Scheffler at 66-1 in a full field WGC than 14-1 in Minnesota.
I agree, but I
think the win is just as likely.
I completely agree. I think that he would win a stacked field tournament, just like we always said with Finau, versus something else. However, I think you're more likely to get more bettable odds on Scheffler than you would even on a Finau in the same sort of situation. I just don't feel like his name carries that kind of weight. Because he's been boxed out of that tier that we're talking about. Now, he can get himself back into it, but as it stands right now, like, he was going off at the same numbers as, like, Cantlay and guys like that. And those guys have just passed him, although it's just because he didn't win, although the performances have still been really good.
Yeah. And, yeah, you're absolutely right. And how many times did we scream, and I screamed, and we screamed on this show that, and it finally, I guess, happened, like, how I always thought, like, Cantlay and Xander, like, they're the exactly same skilled guy. Like, but Xander was always 16 and Cantlay was 30. And now it seems like they're both just 20s.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm 100% lockstep with you on that. I was going to say the most profitable golfer that I feel like we can bet this year, someone who wins at low numbers, I think it's going to be Dustin. Dustin Revenge Tour season.
I don't doubt that at all. I was shocked. I keep referencing it, and go watch it if you haven't. The draft we did with 11 of us, that was quite a hoot. I was shocked how late he went. Like, if I was picking third or four, I might have taken him.
He was I picked, in full disclosure of that, I picked number 4 in that draft, and I had it whittled down to 3 guys who were left on the board. And I was...
Oh, your pick was dropped to you.
It was. I wanted Morikawa. I figured he wouldn't be there. And then he dropped me, and I was like, oh, geez, Morikawa. Okay, because Hovland went before him. So I got Morikawa at number 4. I thought it was going to come down. I thought Morikawa would be gone, and the two I had it down to was Justin Thomas and Dustin Johnson. I was going to take one of those two guys. And that was going to be like a real...
The super hype for Vic, Pat, is going to come at the PGA, right? Because it's at Oklahoma State.
Yes.
And sometimes those are the ones where they actually don't perform well. We saw Rory at that home open, or even in that zone where Fleetwood was potentially capable of doing something special. Remember, like, there was that open at the course, like, him and his dad walked his dog his whole life, like, beside.
And
forever.
it was funny because Rory got all the pub at Portrush, and then it was Lowry who ended up winning, the guy who had no pressure on him.
So yeah, I don't know. And there's a whole flock of Okie State Cowboys.
Ricky. It's Ricky's time.
Oh my God. He
even played well at the PGA Championship last year, when he putted himself out of the Masters, remember?
Yes. Cheering for that. It'll be interesting to see where the numbers, come in for Ricky. They're beat
to hell. He's 50-1 to win the Masters right now. He's not even in the Masters.
He's not in it.
But he's 50-1 to win it.
The books are they're trying to steal from you. That's not right.
Also, if you bet a future on a golfer and they don't play in the tournament, unless they're injured, you don't get your money back if they don't qualify. We learned that the hard way with Gary Woodland.
We learned that. I feel like with the competition in the space now, it's sort of there's a possibility you could write a nicely worded, response or letter, and you can get hooked.
Ricky is, in fairness, number 83 in the world. He has a realistic, some luminaries he needs to pass to get into the Masters. Sean Norris, Charlie Hoffman, Dean Burmista Lady, Alex Noren, Bubba Watson, Marcus Hellgilkid.
And the good thing about Ricky, Ricky's lucky, right? Because even though he's at the moment out of the WGC scene, he's still very much involved in the invitational scene. Oh yeah, he'll always get his invite to the Bay Hill and Memorial and such.
They invited him to play in the PGA Championship last year. They were like, "Yeah, Ricky, here you go. Here's an invite."
That was nice. One of the nicer scenes, I mean it, Pat, was the scene of him trying to qualify for the U.S. Open. Mind you, Jason Day didn't even cancel his tee time. Just went to do a NetJets thing. Got to get paid, obviously. Him missing the qualifier for the U.S. Open by a stroke, trying to grind his way in, and in the darkness, signing autographs for all the kids that were there who wanted one. So I might have been wrong on Ricky Fowler, the golfer. I've been wrong on a lot of golfers, but I was never wrong on Ricky the guy, ever.
Let's talk a little bit about the U.S. Open and what we're going to see from that this time around. The PGA Championship, because that one's in May. That's at Southern Hills in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is the one that we were talking about with Victor Hovland, and where he is going to probably, he might be the betting favorite by the time we get around with the amount of hype that's going to end up going into him. I don't really remember Southern Hills at all. It's a longish course. It's like 7,500 yards. It's a par 71. I assume that's what it's going to play at for the PGA Championship. The last time that a major was held at this course was in 2007 for the PGA Championship. That year, Tiger Woods won. So that doesn't really tell us anything else. But even in 2007, this was the rest of the leaderboard. And I do kind of remember this one because Stephen Ames played in the final group with Tiger Woods on the final day, and Ames didn't end up finishing inside the top 10 because he had that classic. That was such a fun period of time where Tiger would get paired up with like the hot shot, like guy who was having a good week through 3 rounds, and they would shoot like 82 in the final round and just completely crumble playing next to Tiger. I remember it happened to Mike Weir at the PGA Championship. Maybe it's a Canadian thing. I don't know. But Tiger won. Second place was Woody Austin. Third place was Ernie Els. Aaron Olberhoser, John Senden, Simon Dyson, Trevor Immelman, Jeff Ogilvy, Kevin Sutherland, Scott Verplank, and Boo Weekley was the top 10 of that tournament. I don't know. Tiger won at -8. If you were finished at +1, you finished inside the top 10. Like, I don't know what this is going to tell us about what kind of player is going to do well here.
I'm not too sure what sort of player is gonna do well there, but I wouldn't mind, like just looking like for deeper futures. How about two like the older guys we spoke about for at the 100-1, like Scott and Sergio?
Maybe it's really difficult to parse, only because so much has changed in 14 years about like the quality of the mid-tier type of player that it's kind of tricky. Like, is someone gonna win at -7 again, -8 again, or are they just gonna be -15? Because that's the way it is now.
I always expect one of the like top 15 players in the world to have their ceiling. And that's sometimes why it like can sometimes be a blockade in betting major futures, because it's like, I don't know, do I really want to bet this? One of the really good players is just going to win. Like, what am I doing?
What are Scheffler's odds at the U.S. Open?
We talking PGA or U.S. Open?
The PGA. I don't know why I keep seeing U.S. Open. PGA
40.
Yeah,
Him and Finau at 40 aren't bad. What do you see for Neiman?
At 45.
Wish it was like 60.
Yeah, me too. I think Neiman has a really good year here.
I'm going to bring him up for the U.S. Open as well. I think those how do I put this? Like, there's so much love for Sam Burns, and obviously so, and the way he can he's such a big hitter, and his game has a nice finesse level to it, and the way he can overpower courses. Neiman is like 23 years old. He's literally becoming that same guy. He drives it with DJ. I'm not even kidding. And he doesn't get that credit. So when we go to these long monster U.S. Open, PGA Championship type courses, in terms of what they write on, in terms of what their measurements are, I'm obsessed with Neiman right now.
I'm just trying to find the other Southern Hills. Let's see. Byung-Hun An won the U.S. Amateur at Southern Hills in 2009. Alex Chayka won last year's Senior PGA Championship there. Retief Goosen won the 2001 U.S. Open at this course. I mean, Alex Chayka is not a big hitter. Maybe he is for the senior tour, though. Like, that's really difficult to figure out. Like, a guy who was short hitting and accurate off the tee on the PGA Tour as a 49-year-old. Does that make him one of the longer hitters on the seniors tour? That's kind of confusing to me sometimes. But I mean,
Taylor Gooch 150-1.
Yeah, I don't think I want to put him in the major conversation yet.
I'm just saying, I'm just low cowboy.
It does seem to be. I mean, if it plays to its historical strengths and the type of players that have won, it does seem players who play well at hard courses, by and large, do really well. Like, this could be a Patrick Reed spot.
Yeah. Finau at 40. I'm telling.
It's going to be 60 by the time it comes along, though. It
won't.
That's not a bet right now.
I don't know. Finau, Scheffler, 40. Paul Casey, but I wish you always need more than that.
Okay, let's talk U.S. Open then, because the U.S.
Hold on though. Oh yeah, Im could be value at all of these.
Maybe. I mean, that's potentially true. So we have the Country Club is it Brookline, Massachusetts?
Yeah, see, like this is where Tim would like just wax poetic about how much he knows, right?
Yeah, so we don't really have any recent history at this course. The last time we saw anything competitive here, Matthew Fitzpatrick won the U.S. Amateur in 2013. He beat Oliver Goss. It's not telling us much. The United States won the Ryder Cup 14.5 to 13.5 in 1999. The last time it hosted a major was the 1988 U.S. Open, won by Nick Faldo. No, sorry, won by Curtis Strange over Nick Faldo. We're going to really have to dig in on this one at the time. I don't really have any particular leans. You just have to know, I would assume it's going to be decked out like a USGA type course, that it's going to play incredibly hard. From the tee book, it says it is I don't know how the USGA is going to set this up, but per what they list on like their website, it's a par 71 that's 7,000 yards. Doesn't sound very US Open-y.
No, and like you, Pat, I really have zero familiarity with it at all. But I've been told by people who are, course snobs to get excited because it's a true gem.
I can see it, and we'll learn more about this course as we get closer to the PGA Championship. I would just say, just play it under the kind of conditions that there are certain types of players that play really well under USGA. Like, what are Fleetwood's odds for the U.S. Open? I bet you they're probably like 50 to 1. Like,
I'm seeing 50 to 66 is like the price range.
We're just not getting a break on him at all, are we? Even though he's been garbage.
No. Neiman 66.
Yeah. Leishman maybe.
Yeah, Leishman's a beast at these. I'm seeing a 70 for Leishman. Your boy Woodland's an 80. Kokrak 80. This was the major I got confused at earlier because I mentioned Im was 80 at a major. It is this one.
Yeah. I don't know enough about it yet to start taking blind shots at it, but we can talk about
Corey Connors is 80, but you said he's 200th in the world around the greens, but maybe he could just do what Woodland did at the US Open and just luck sack everything.
Yeah, I would be. Maybe they do have official yardage at U.S. Open 2022 golf scorecard. See if they have anything up for that, because if it is one of these shorter U.S. Opens, although when Woodland won, it was like Brooks and Rahm were up there with him, and like Hovland.
If it's a shorter U.S. Open, I'd bet like Answer at 70 to 1.
That's what I'm saying. Like Connors and Answer, like that type of player gets a bit more live, I think. Answer,
and as you pointed, even Reed, if it's shorter too, even though he's shorter on the price.
I would go the other way. Reed plays longer hard courses better for reasons. Just because Cam Smith would be. Cam Smith's very Reed-ish in the way that he plays, I find.
Honestly, like there's so many guys. If you tell me it's a short U.S. Open, like let's go. Where's Webb Simpson's number?
Yeah, but I don't feel like it ever works out that way. Not that we see a ton of short U.S. Open courses, but like...
Phil just won the major that was on the longest course ever, so who cares what the card says?
Yeah, it's true. The USGA hasn't updated their site from Torrey Pines yet, so that's not doing us any good. Let's talk about St. Andrews, because this is fun. It feels special when the Open Championship, although it's not my favorite Open Championship course, it's kind of bland, to tell you the truth. I find that the ones that are more impacted by wind or that are like directly on the coast or at big dune bunkers, I just find those more exciting. Now, I'm very snobbish. I love the Masters, but I have the most fun watching the Open Championship every single year because it always feels like anyone can win the Open Championship. The problem is I don't feel like that's the case at St. Andrews.
Yeah. Just trying to think, like...
That's where Louis won by 4 over Casey. Zach Johnson beat out Leishman and...
Yeah, Louis won by 4, but he was up like 9.
Yes, like he coasted in the final round. But then Louis lost. Did Louis lose into that playoff to Zach Johnson the next time around in 2015, last time? I
The
believe
one
it-
that like Day, Spieth, like some guys just missed it too, right?
Day and Spieth missed the playoff on the number. Leishman was
So yeah,
in the
Louis
playoff.
and Leishman, I think,
Yeah, it was. Louis and Leishman were in that playoff. Like, and then it was Louis
on a Monday.
Louis over Casey, and then Tiger won the 2 times before that. And like, even when you go down the list, like, yes, John Daly won here back when him bombing it was such an advantage. But even to go back through time, Faldo, Seve, Jack, like, generally speaking, the elite of the elite win at St. Andrews.
Yeah, it's hard to figure because it does feel like a course, Pat, that sort of lends itself to
Anyone?
like anyone where the field is wide open, where Bernd Wiesberger at like 180 to 1, it just feels like sets up for those guys also in some respect.
You'd think that it would, but that's just not what we've seen. Like, even the year that Louis won, okay, man, Casey really took a tank in that final round. It was Louis, Westwood, Rory, Stenson, Casey. Those were the tops, and those were all elite. Louis came out of nowhere, but he wasn't a nobody. He was just a nobody to most of the international scene. He's not the Louis that we know now. This was sort of his coming out party on the international stage, but he was a good player. But Westwood, Rory, Stenson, and Casey were like the best players in the world at the time.
Like,
besides Tiger.
it's hard to find trouble there.
Yes.
So
Louis won by
everyone
7
is just in the
strokes.
fairway and, flicking their irons.
And that's all Zach did, and then he made his putts. That was it.
So, like, does Abe Answer perform in the wind?
I mean, Neiman does. I know that. And just even like, I just read you off the top 10 from the Louis year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each of the 7 top players were all non-American players. Only 2 of the top 10 were American. In the Zach Johnson year, he won, Spieth finished out, and someone named Nybruge ended up finishing at minus 11, who I don't remember that at all. But there was only 3 Americans inside the top 10 that year too. So maybe it's a bit more open to the rest of the world for reasons, which I don't know.
I would say Sergio's 100 to 1 to win the PGA, but he's 50 to 1 to win the Open.
I could see that. Could be a nice like last spot for Rose. Will it maybe? We've seen him still perform really well in England. So I think that those guys are more on the table than you'd think. Remember when everyone basically just into the claret jug just sketched in Dustin Johnson after 36 holes in 2015?
Yeah, and then there was like a no-win Saturday, and he just shat the bed. But would golf just break? Like, would people break if Bryson just evaporated St. Andrews?
I would love it. I would love Bryson. I mean, it's funny that we've gotten to an hour and 15 in this episode, and we haven't talked about Bryson, who is easily the most entertaining product the PGA Tour has. I would love it. I would absolutely love it if he destroyed St. Andrews.
Like all-time scoring record, driving greens, getting insane rollouts.
Oh yeah, and not only would like British fans be super triggered about it, people hate Bryson enough that everyone would be triggered about it, and it would be amazing. I would be here for it.
I don't know. Rahm could do the same thing though.
Yeah, but Rahm, I mean, people would be happy for Rahm. Like, people would expect Rahm to do it. People would just be so mad if Bryson did it.
Yeah.
Like him trying to,
I'm here for it.
Him trying to fly the burn on 1 or something, like trying to drive the green or something stupid like that.
I mean, I guess like just to go backwards, do you think Bryson will have learned anything from like his last year's Masters, or he's gonna just completely try to do it again?
I mean, he made a ton of birdies at last year's Masters, and
they lost a ball. Oh, no,
they lost a ball that was like two feet off the fairway. So it felt like he came into it with a pretty arrogant attitude the last 2 times. I think he'll be humbled a little bit, but I think that he has the right strategy at Augusta. It's a lot like your Chargers on 4th down. They have the right idea. They just need to execute. And if Bryson can execute at Augusta, I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, of course. I'm convinced he's going to win a Masters. Like it's not a bold take to say Bryson's going to win a big event, but like one of the next couple.
Bryson doing anything and making everyone upset is I just hook that into my veins for this PGA season.
I'm always here for it.
We're Team Bryson. Team Bryson, Team Reed on this show. Probably the only one you're going to find out there.
I don't know why. My least favorite really good golfer at the moment,
Cantlay.
No, I don't even mind Cantlay. I don't know what happened. Like Justin Thomas, I feel like it's
Really?
so boring. Doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, I mean, I just think Justin Thomas is really good. It's just overall skill wise.
Yeah, he's got a putt. When he putts,
yeah, he wins.
You know,
there's just something about Cantlay. I look at him and like he's won me money. He's been very good to my bank account. One of my most profitable golfers ever, Patrick Cantlay. Just I look at him like, man, I don't want to root for this guy. He's so.
If you have money again,
he's so boring and he's so slow. And it's like, oh man, just hurry up and do something.
And he puts that like sticks his tongue out like this when the ball's in the air. Like,
yeah, you got to find little reasons to hate people. This is what I'm doing. I don't hate him.
He's got a very like punchable face. If he's the guy you're fighting with down the stretch.
It's true, and I know something about having very punchable faces. People have told me this my entire life, and then punch me in the face. So, I mean, I have a very punchable face. It's a very annoying face, especially with the voice that I have and the loudness that emanates from my mouth at the same time. But yeah, there's just something about him I don't like. I don't get it, and the fact that I become a Spieth fan after all these years.
Yeah, I don't hate Spieth nearly as much. Although I found only when we get to major weeks do I not like Spieth. But I don't know. Because I bet these cards full of guys who have never won majors. So obviously like, what's someone else I really like? Well, who I like, period, win. You don't need any more.
That's fair. All right, I think that will do it. Any final thoughts about the upcoming PGAs? I mean, we're going to be talking about Tournament of Champions pretty soon anyway. So what do you got?
No final thoughts. It's just like a whirlwind, Pat. Like to me, like how much has changed like since we started doing this. And I encourage everybody who's out there, you get a lot of messages on what to do. I don't think I have the best advice. I would just say like what makes you, what makes you different would be your edge. Like that is really the advice that's worked for me. And it's so like weird when people say I'm starting a golf, like been watching you guys for years and I'm finally deciding to start something. Like that's so weird. That's such a trip for me, and it still happens and it still trips me out no matter how many times I get that message. So it's flattering and weird because I don't know. I'm just think I'm just a guy. It's talking.
This will be
no more than you.
This will be like year 8 of us doing this show, which is completely insane. And there are so many different golf shows, so many really good different golf shows that are out there right now. The space has really become flooded with a lot of really good talent. I guess the one thing I would say about it is, listen, like no one comes to, I mean, people tail you and they win. Sometimes they tail me and they win, but like we're not professional golf bettors. We're people who like to bet on golf and like talking about betting on golf. The one thing you need to remember if you're going to get into this space and start a podcast or do whatever, you want to give out good information. Information is key. Don't give out bad information or wrong information. The picks, you hope that they're good. There are certain people like I get messages, and I'm probably sure you do too, Geoff, from people that will say like, oh, you know, I won so many units this year. Like I hit so many winners this year. No one gives a shit how much you win on a podcast at all. You want to leverage your winning picks into money? Bet the picks and win money. Sell a newsletter where you just send people picks that win. If you're going to start a podcast, have something interesting to say. People can go find winners anywhere. They can go click a site that they pay for $10 a month to see a list of 5 names that they have to bet on, if that's all they're really concerned about. If people are listening to a podcast, they're concerned with more than just, they want to win, but they're concerned more about having an entertaining product and hear people discussing what's going on in golf. At least that's how I've always tried to operate. When I see the most successful shows in this space, they all follow that same template. Some people are sharp. When you have me, some people are dull, but we're trying to make it entertaining. It's not like, here are my bets for the week. 0.38 units on Bryson DeChambeau to win at plus 17. I shopped around on the site, and because of this, and this, like, have your reasons, have your picks. But if you're not going to actually do a show, don't have a fucking podcast.
That is, I would say, very well said, Pat. That is very well said. Also, it's like weird. It's a trip. You can't never win, but people don't care. Like if you win, now you've got to win enough where they like you, but I'll admit, like I had a very like funny moment that I was laughing about myself the other day. Like I thought the day after Willett won the Masters, Pat, like ESPN would be calling me.
I did not live under
They
those
didn't even care about it in the place we worked.
They did.
It was like,
well,
you
no,
know what I mean?
they
Like,
did.
you realize quick.
They did
Sorry,
care
go.
because everyone at the office won that bet too, and everyone was pumped, except for Gary and who didn't bet it.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like no one cares. Like, yeah, no one cares. I guess you got to be good. You got to be good enough. You got to be entertaining. No one, if you don't win every week, it's irrelevant. You know, you got to win enough where people will tune back in and care what you have to say. But I get this a lot too, and I think this is a great strategy. So people say, like they'll list me like 7 people who we all know and we're all like fans of and we read their stuff. Like I look at your like 6 guys picks, I see who you all picked, and then from that I make my own card. I mean, I reply, that sounds like an amazing strategy.
That's a really good strategy, and honestly, like, don't follow anyone's picks. It's fucking golf betting. No one is doing this professionally. The people that do this professionally play top 20s and head-to-heads, which are not fun to bet. They are there to maximize what you are doing.
Exactly.
Like Pizzola bets golf, not often, but when he does, it's because his model spits him out something that is so outrageous that he's going to throw a huge chunk of money on it and take advantage of that little edge that he has. I have no.
And it's a
when it comes
head-to-head.
to this. Yeah, it's a head-to-head, or it's
a head-to-head. And I'll ask Paul a story, not a. We'll go to a course that they've never been to before for a major, and I'll be like, Pizzola, who you betting? He goes, I don't have a single bet. I don't have an ounce of data. And I'm like, but it's the PGA Championship. I don't give a shit. Bah, bah, bah. And I'm not even making fun of Rob. I'm saying, like, I'm impressed by that, like, discipline, but that just shows you where, like, no, they don't have data. They're not, like, making it. They don't care. They realize like we all do, the variables in hitting an outright golfer. Does it take some level of skill, Pat, for us to sit here and say that guy is 60-1, we're picking him to win, and then he comes in 3rd place and like he played well. We had a vibe he would play well. Winning, there's just so much luck in winning. Like it takes skill to say he'll play well. To say he's going to win is all luck, like 90% luck. Identifying he's going to play well, yes. Winning, luck.
And the whole point of making the bets on these shows, I mean, I want to win money. Obviously, I would much prefer to win than to lose, but it's all a part of the community is a part of it too. If like people tail our bets or we're all on the same guy, we can sit down. Like it's a 4-day experience. It's better than going to the movies. And by the end of the week, it's cheaper than if you went to 8 hours of movies that we can sit there on a Sunday afternoon. If our guys win, we can all celebrate together. And the next day is super fun. Like that's the part of the content that I think that resonates with people rather than just picking winners and losers.
And there's so many lanes in golf, like choose your own adventure. If you like the head-to-heads, if those work for you, do it. The DFS angle, whether that be the showdown or the full week. I like doing outrights, as we've discussed. It's probably not the most prudent way. I've gotten more lucky. I've gotten I literally acknowledge like there's a majority of luck that goes into it, and I can just know that I meet my quota. I'm fine. I trust myself to meet my quota. But do not kid yourself. It comes with an acceptance that there might be like 2 whole freaking months I don't hit a bet. And I've got to be able to take that on the chin. Like I've got to accept that's going to happen when I bankroll an entire golf season.
Agreed. Well, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience, the intro to 2022 golf season. Of course, we're going to have shows every single week for both betting and DraftKings and updates. And I'll have all my articles up on DK Nation. Jeff will be up on Odds Checker. I'll have an article in Golf Digest. I'll have my stuff on PGA Tour. We're going to be everywhere and more places than you think this golf season. So follow Jeff on Twitter at GFienberg17. Follow myself at the PME. Sub to the Mayo Media newsletter. You can go to Substack, type in Mayo Media, or just hit the description and go do that. The one and done fantasygolfchampionships.com. Go get your entry right now, and fantasynational.com/Mayo to get yourself 20% off. Smash the like on the way out. Sub to the network. We'll see you next year.
Pat Mayo Experience. experience.